Generally, they just say, what part of America are you from? And I say the Canadian part. And then the funny thing is that a lot of people go, oh, sorry. And so it's kind of like they understand that that almost in the way that an Irish person, if they go abroad, doesn't really like being mistaken for an English person. I never got anyone saying to me, though, in a negative way, like, go back to Canada, we don't want your sort here. So that's different to people from other countries. I know, because I've heard from them and I've seen it in action. So there's a thing that I call being an acceptable migrant. There's this like list, I think, that are in some people's heads and in some authorities' heads where, you know, it's a lot easier to be a migrant in a country where you're English speaking, you're white, you're from a Western country. That's, you know, they're gonna say, oh yeah, no bother. But it's a lot different if you don't tick any of those boxes. And I have seen firsthand how differently people are treated. And that really bugs me. My name is Jessica Reid. I'm a Canadian, originally from Langley, British Columbia. I've been in Ireland for 11 years, and I am living in Galway City right now after 5 years originally spent in Mayo. And this is my story. I came here on a 1-year working holiday visa 11 years ago, and I just wanted to try experience working abroad somewhere, actually living in a place rather than just visiting it, because I'd been to Ireland backpacking previously. And so I arrived in 2019, or 2009, I should say, in the teeth of the recession, which was great timing. And I ended up finding a random job out in Kilchama, County Mayo, which is quite a small town in the west of Ireland, for those who aren't familiar. I'm a graphic designer, so I've randomly found a job doing design out there. And so the first year it went by really fast, really wasn't enough time. You actually end up doing a lot more working than holiday on a working holiday. So I just ended up with work permit after work permit and have just stayed here ever since. So I had the very Canadian view of Ireland, where Canada has, you know, a lot of people would have a very romanticized view of things, obviously, and a lot of diaspora would be, you know, in Canada from immigration of many years. They buy into the Fulch Ireland picture a little bit, you know, so it's all romantic stone cottages and green fields and rainbows and all of that, which we do have. That's definitely a thing, but it's less of the understanding of sort of a day-to-day culture of living and working in quite a modern society, and all of the challenges and aspects of that. So those sorts of things definitely, but that was kind of my purpose more so, was when I was here as a backpacker, staying in hostels and having a great time, but seeing a very postcard version of Ireland. And I kind of knew that if I wanted to really see the place, I'd have to actually live here. I didn't feel not accepted, but it was quite hard to break into like established friend groups, I think you would say, especially in a small town where I think everybody's known everyone else their whole lives, gone to school together, they have all that established history, and it's just, people be very friendly to you, like they'd say hi to you on the street, they'd say hi to you in shops and ask how you're doing and whatever, but it kind of doesn't go beyond that for quite a while, like to actually want to go for a coffee, go for a drink, or have any further kind of more relationship with anyone in terms of establishing more friends and such. The people I ended up meeting really for the first couple of years that I was here were other people from elsewhere. So my best friends there were from Italy and America and Japan in this small town in the west of Ireland, and we kind of had a shared experience of also being from away, and so we could connect through that a little bit easier. Now I have loads of Irish friends and friends from all parts of the world. There's probably more similarities than differences, definitely, between Ireland and Canada. I'm from an area that's outside Vancouver on the west coast, so the weather is actually not that different. It's kind of mild and temperate, rainy, with not a huge amount of snow in the winter, but we get a little bit warmer summers. So that wasn't a massive difference. Bizarre things like understanding how the heating systems worked here, and didn't know about estimated bills for electricity. That was a fun one at the time. And I think it was probably more things like learning some of the slang, vernacular terms. It's like the idea of taking the piss, and like we don't have a version of that in Canada. Like you would say, oh, well, you were making fun of someone or having a laugh or whatever, but we don't have a version of take the piss, because that's just not people will do it, but they wouldn't have a name for it. Things that are kind of like where you say something and it's kind of, you're expecting the opposite response. So, it's like, I will, yeah, where it means you're actually not going to do the thing, or come here to me, which actually doesn't mean you're supposed to come here. It's deadly or massive, or all these kinds of things that are, they're positives here, they're possibly negatives in other places. So you have to kind of learn all of those as you go along. Gowl is a great word. Shifting and riding were fun ones that I really didn't know about for quite a while. Made some quite interesting remarks over the time, until someone clued me in on those ones. UrbanDictionary.com has been a lifesaver, I have to say, because it really helps me. If I hear a word that I'm suddenly like, I'm not sure about that one, before I use it in context. I think maybe the pace of life, the way things operate. I had some very random experiences of people just, you can just do it like this, and it's just that kind of there's sort of an Irish attitude of, sure, you'll be grand, just do this crazy thing, it'll be fine, it'll all work out in the end, and usually it does. It's quite amazing. But people were very happy that they were like, I'll just give you a lift, and just like with people that I in Canada, I might not have actually taken the lift, because it would be too much like, this is a stranger and I don't know them from anyone. But here I was like, right, okay, we'll do that. It definitely, it varies. I found the cost of things like heating your home properly to actually be warm and things like that, quite surprising, while still being fairly cold a lot of the time. I wasn't, it was a recession, no one was making a lot of money, so you're living on quite a budget. I definitely didn't come here to get rich, that's for sure. So generally I would find it would be just a bit different. I mean, like if you take Vancouver, it's one of the most expensive cities to live in the world. The real estate prices, the rental prices are astronomical. So it's still a bit different in that sense. But I think it's just, I suppose it's what you're used to in terms of the conveniences and things. And like I was living in a rural town, and I didn't have a car, and there was very limited public transport, and I had a bike for a while. And so you just have to adapt to, it might take you all day Saturday to go to a Tesco in a nearby town, because the bus only comes once every 6 hours. And, so you have to kind of structure your life around different things than you would have expected back home, I suppose. They generally have the ideas of being, kind of this politeness that we were a little bit known for. Can't say that's not necessarily a bad stereotype, so whatever, I'll take it. It's kind of, they like to ask you about the weather and the winter and all of these kinds of things. Occasionally someone will make a hockey reference or something like that. The interesting thing I think was that I would get comments about, sure, I have cousins over in Canada, or my best friend's gone to Canada, and because there's been so many Irish people that have emigrated to Canada in the last few years, especially during the recession and everything, I'd get comments about people saying, you've gone the opposite way to come here from Canada. Even some people going, why would you come here from Canada? I'm just like, well, there's reasons. Whereas a lot of people are there is a little bit of a interpretation that Canada is very prosperous and lots of opportunities, and that's why a lot of Irish people would have been going there, which is, there's definitely opportunities depending on where you're going, what field of work you're trying to get, how, what kind of lifestyle you want to have. So it is good that there's a lot of cross-border movement happening with people. I never got anyone saying to me, though, in a negative way, like, go back to Canada, we don't want your sort here. So that's different to people from other countries. I know, because I've heard from them and I've seen it in action. So there's a thing that I call being an acceptable migrant. There's this list, I think, that are in some people's heads and in some authorities' heads where, it's a lot easier to be a migrant in a country where you're English speaking, you're white, you're from a Western country. That's, they're gonna say, oh yeah, no bother. But it's a lot different if you don't tick any of those boxes. And I have seen firsthand how differently people are treated. And that really bugs me. And I refuse to use the term expat, because to me, that's something that's for English speaking people that go abroad and then immediately complain that no one speaks their language and the food is not the food they're used to, and to all of these sorts of things. I'm a migrant. I'm happy to call myself a migrant. I class myself with everyone else who is a migrant. There shouldn't be any distinction, but you definitely see the way that it's viewed by certain people. There's a perception difference. That's really tricky, because there's so many places. I think there would be places that you'd want to return to over and over again, rather than just say, okay, I've been here once, that was it. That was, I can tick it off the list. But I think it would be mostly places, out on the West Coast, that we've really enjoyed, like going out to Achill Island in Mayo, or just the beaches along the whole coast in Connemara and down through Clare and into Kerry and stuff like that. It is probably more the sort of the natural landscape for me in places like that. I mean, I like going to the castles and the historic areas too, but I always kind of gravitate back towards the landscape, and often it's also places where I can bring my dogs. So. Greyhounds are something that's been I'm a bit of a lifer at this point, because we adopted our Greyhound in Canada when I was 11 years old, after it took me 3 years to convince my parents to get one. And she came from the States, because there's no Greyhound racing in Canada. So I already had a lot of interest in Greyhounds, and I had already known that there was Greyhound racing still active in Ireland before I arrived, and I had looked into it a little bit online and such. And so when I was first arrived, and I had done a job interview, and I was waiting to hear back from a job, and I ended up down in Killarney, staying in a hostel, and I knew that there was a Greyhound rescue down there called Kerry Greyhound Connection. And so I said, well, I'm here for a few days kicking around, I might as well contact them, see if I can help out, walk some dogs, do whatever they need. So I made contact with them, and before long I was out helping them walk dogs down at the kennels that they were renting, and I was back in the hostel sitting room making posters for them on my little computer that I brought with me from Canada. And so basically I've stayed as a volunteer with them, called Homes for Unwanted Greyhounds now. They decided to rebrand. So I did stuff like I did their logo and their website and their brochures and their Facebook page and any promotional bits and pieces along the way, shirts and bags and display boards and band graphics and whatever stuff that we can come up with to promote things. It was a big shock to me in terms of how Greyhounds were perceived here when I first arrived. because they were very much not seen as pet dogs, which would have been my experience in Canada, is having them as pets. And it took a while to understand the kind of understanding that they were related more to being an agricultural product rather than a companion animal. And so the group was busy trying to find homes for them, but we would have to send most of the dogs abroad to partner rescues in UK, let's say Sweden, Italy, Belgium, places like that where they'd be more accepted as pets. But we were always trying to get more dogs adopted in Ireland, because at the end of the day, that's a lot less complicated and less expensive. But also we just felt that, they make great pets. People don't realize that. We need to start getting the word out there. I joined up with Galway Anti-Racism Network it was almost about 3 years ago that I had kind of connected there. I think it was because you're hearing more really divisive things happening all around the world, not just in Ireland, but obviously the United States as a big thing. You had Brexit happening in the UK and all of the stuff that was coming out there. Just was very concerned about the way that the situation was going. I was just very bothered by the way that it was seen as, oh sure, Ireland's not that bad. Sure, we're better than here, we're better than there, and it's kind of like, well, do you really want to use some places that have very major issues as your baseline level for not being racist? And so yeah, it was very eye-opening then once you start getting involved with these things, because then you're talking to people that are experiencing it directly and how it has affected them. And I think it's one of the things that's really not understood in Ireland is the idea of like microaggressions and small acts day to day constantly add up to just this horrible sense of being othered all the time. Because I think there's a sense sometimes that if a person isn't being yelled at with the N-word on the street, or physically attacked, or have something really major happen to them, their house spray painted with horrible language, that anything that doesn't get to that level isn't actually racism. And that's a major concern, because we need to have a much broader understanding of these things, because once it gets to the point that you're actually having people being physically attacked in the street, you've kind of lost the plot there already. So we need to have a much better understanding overall, and we need to just sit back, and especially I'm saying as white people, we need to sit back and listen to people that are affected, let them talk about it, let them tell us, and then listen to them and actually believe them when they tell us what they're going through and what they're experiencing, because there's an awful lot of trying to be experts at things that they have. The other thing is, again, we keep comparing, it's always a comparative system. So you compare yourself to America or to UK and things, and it's like, well, sure, aren't we really inclusive and wonderful? And like, there are good things happening, and there's a lot of people that are perfectly accepting and welcoming and fully inclusive. But there's a lot of work to be done still. Listen and believe people when they say that there's an issue. That's all you have. Like, it's a very simple thing. We're not asking you to take a huge leap here. We're just saying, if you're going to ask people for their stories, then you need to take the next step, which is also believing them, and then saying, and then what can I do to further this, rather than going, oh, but that's not us. We're not that bad, really. Like, it's just I know it's a knee-jerk reaction, but it's a thing we got to get over in a big way. The Republic is about 5 million, and then all Ireland would be another million or so, I believe, something like that. I don't know the specifics, but in that ballpark. I would say Cork.
Yeah.
I don't have to be close on that one at least. That one's a bit of a gimme, so we'll go with the option A there, Patrick's Day. But it's not Patty's Day. That's the most important thing, isn't it? Which I've seen many Canadians write that all the time. No, he wasn't. He was Welsh, I believe. Or I have to say that would be the legs. I have to admit I haven't attempted any Irish traditional dancing when I'm here, but they don't move the upper body a whole lot, so I have to think it's your legs that would be doing most of the work.